in depth. Okay, that is, we'll be understanding what you mean by hypothesis testing, why we want to do hypothesis testing. Okay, what's the use case of doing hypothesis testing? Okay, it's not so much of lengthy portion to cover, but the understanding requires a lot of effort. Okay, most of the people when asked in interview will face a problem in this hypothesis testing, because they don't know how exactly it will work, and they don't know like how we why we need to apply hypothesis testing. So this is a very important topic. Okay, so I want to, and I have did this like for a few batches I've already did this, but I'm repeating this because this is a very important, I felt this is a very important topic, so I'm discussing once again. Okay, just for a recap for 2 minutes, we started seeing the data, we started analyzing the data, we got to know the flow of how exactly to work on the data set. Okay, the data set, we given the particular data, we got to know how to work on the data in terms of given the particular data. First thing, I mean, the flow of a data scientist or a machine learning is we need to take in three different steps. The first step is to take the data and start doing analytics, which is a part of data analytics part. Then comes the machine learning part. Then comes the AI and deep learning part. When it comes to data analytics, we will take the data. Okay, once when we take the data, we'll try to analyze how the data looks and how exactly is it, whether it is you know whether it's a categorical data, continuous data. Then we start describing the data. We'll understand how many number of rows, how many number of columns. Okay. After that, we try to see whether there's a missing value in the data. After missing value, we'll try to fill the missing value. After handling the missing value, we try to see the distribution in the data. Distribution in terms of, we see whether the data is consisting of outliers. If it is an outlier, then we see how to remove the outliers. Before considering the removing the outliers, you must understand whether the data is binomial distribution or normal distribution. If it is a binomial distribution, we will see whether data is balanced. If it is a normal distribution, we will see for the outliers. We got to know how to remove the outliers. We got to know the different type of curves. Okay, we saw only two curves. One is normal distribution, other one is binomial distribution. Okay, when it's like true or false case, we must go for binomial distribution. When it is a something continuous value, then we go for a normal distribution. After understanding the data is normally distributed, we try to answer the questions on statistical measures. In terms of, we will ask question ourselves, telling it as how many number of people will be there between less than 30%, how many people have getting 30 salary less than 30,000. The question is something like this, and the data is normally distributed. We got to know how to understand this using the value of mu. Okay, and mu minus 1 SD, mu minus 2 SD, mu minus 3 SD. I told you about the distribution curve. Okay, we'll just revisit it for our time today also. Okay, then we understood how to answer those questions. All this comes to descriptive statistics. We mean to say that it's just answering the question, seeing the data. Later we also do with visualization using Matplotlib, Plotly, okay, and Seaborn. We give a visualization. Then a complete report comes to data analytics part, so that a team will understand what is happening in the data. After understanding what is there in the data, then we go for the machine learning step. Okay, after understanding machine learning, we will see that efficiency has to be increased or what to do next. Then we can go to AI. AI is not compulsory, but machine learning, if the data is a structured data, then we go for machine learning. This is what we'll be ending it. Okay, as I told you, it is in two phases. The first phase is data analytics, second phase is the machine learning. So now we are in, okay, now when this inferential statistics will come into picture. After you people giving the statistical report on how the data is being distributed and what is so and so, okay, now the people need to conduct some experiment, telling it as, okay, if this is the case, you told that 30,000, you told that 30% of the people are getting less than 30,000 salary. How much confidence you are? The question is something like this. If you ask in terms of a very good statistician, I'll ask you in terms of confidence interval. I say that how much confidence you are that you are telling that there are 30% of people are getting less than 30,000 salary. Then I need to define some range for it. How to define this range? That is what we need to see. It's not only this. After that, we need to understand whether to conduct the experiment or not. For example, there is a drug which has been found out for corona. Okay, assume, okay, there's a corona. Then I will say that if I give this drug for the people, if I start doing marketing for these people, how much probable people will get recovered? Okay, what's the percentage of recovery? If these kind of questions, if the questions are something like this, then we must go to inferential statistics. That is, what is there in the data, just describing the data and answering the questions is descriptive statistics. What is the inference you can give in the data, what can be done next is an inferential statistics. What inference you can give is inferential statistics. Just describing what is there in the data is called as descriptive statistics. So I told you that two terms of statistics, descriptive and inferential. Before coming to statistics, you must make sure, you must understand how the data is distributed, whether normal distributed, binomial distributed. You must handle the missing values, you must remove the outliers, you must understand which data is required, which data is not required. Keeping all those terminologies, later we come to descriptive and inferential. After doing descriptive and inferential, next comes your machine learning. We are done with descriptive statistics. Now we are into inferential statistics. Okay, this is what we'll be doing. Any concerns till here? Anyone?
No.
Okay, is it okay? If you have any concerns when you are doing, like, please let me know. Okay, so that we will do it and later we can go to information. This is very important. Okay, it's very important and I want people to understand. Okay, great. Fine. So now we go to distribution curves. Okay, I'll just revise. We already did the distribution curves. I'll just revisit this. I told you distribution curve is called as Gaussian distribution. When I say Gaussian distribution, nothing but the normal distribution curve. I told you when the data is a continuous value data, then we must put a normal distribution curve. Okay, I told you in the last week that when the given data is not normally distributed, we can bring it to the normal distribution. Doing what? How can I convert the normal distribute data to the standard normal form? How to bring the data to standard normal form? If I want to give some inferences on the data, I can't usually give the inferences. I can't just tell about the data by just plotting the normal, by plotting the graph of the Gaussian distribution. I need to take the continuous value data and convert it to standard normal form. Only then I can give the info. I can answer a lot of questions on how the data is being distributed. So how to bring the data to standard normal form? How to bring the data to standard normal form? Anyone? No one?
By normalization.
by
X minus
by
mu.
adding some data
By
or
adding some data?
removing
No,
the
I
data.
told you there's something called a standard normal form. If I'm not wrong, if people remember what is standard normal form? Converting the data to in the form of Z, right? Okay, converting the data in the form of Z is called a standard normal form. Okay, I'll just revise. Okay, I think I did it, but okay, I'll just revise for a time. Okay, example for normal distribution is height of the people, size of the people, error in measurement, blood pressure, mark on a test. All these are example for normal distribution data. Now a survey of a daily travel time as results. Okay, I'm just revising for the information. Please don't forget. Okay, because we don't get an opportunity to study once again all these concepts. Okay, it is very important. Okay, given a survey. Okay, given a survey of so and so. Okay, given a survey of so and so, the 26, 33, 65, 28, 35, so and so and so. Okay, now what they say, this is the daily travel time of the employee being reaching his home from the office. Okay, now they understood that they need to understand. Okay, even if when they want to give a transportation for the employees, they need to understand whether what is an average time an employee reaches an office. I mean, employee reaches home from the office, so that they can take the next level of analysis and they will decide whether to give transportation or not. If the reach time of office, I mean, to home from the office is more than 1.5 hours, or mean to say like more than 50 minutes. Okay, average number of people are reaching to home more than 50 minutes. Then we think, okay, we need to give transportation because employee are spending most of the time traveling only. So it would be good for them to give transportation. If most of the people are reaching their home with less than 30 minutes or something like that, then I say, okay, let's not give the transportation. After all, it's 30 minutes, right? They can travel in their own vehicle. If we can give some fuel expenses, it would be fine. So to decide these things, this is what the data collected from the HR. She says that 26, 33, 65, 28, 34, so and so are the data collected by the survey of a survey in an organization. Okay, now I need to understand how this data is being distributed. How to understand if the data is distributed is, I understand it's a normal distribution data because it's a continuous value. So understand the normal distribution data, I just put the plot. If you don't know whether normal distribution or it is like what to say binomial distribution, just put a graph. Just put a graph, it will show you whether it's normal distributed or binomial distribution. Okay, now I just have this, but I can't give any inferences with this data. I told you I can't give any inference with this data because it's not in the standard normal form. If you want to convert it to standard normal form, the convert to standard normal form, the formula is z or z is equal to x minus mu divided by standard deviation. Z is equal to x minus mu divided by standard deviation. So what is x? X is 26. I've taken just one value, 26. Mu, I've taken 38.8. x minus mu, that is 26 minus 38.8 minus 12.8 divided by standard deviation, which is 11.4. So I'll get the answer as minus 1.12. So this is the standard value what I got, this minus 1.12. I hope you people remember when I did something like this. Okay, this is 0, the middle value is 0, minus 1 plus 1, minus 2 plus 2, minus 3 plus 3. Mean to say that given a particular data, okay, the percentage of the value, what it covers. The value from minus 3SD to plus 3SD will cover 99% of the data. The value from minus 2 to plus 2 will cover 95% of the data. The value from minus 1 to plus 1 will cover how much?
69.
Yeah, somewhere around 68% of the data. Okay, this is what we understood. Okay, now if the data is between minus 0.5 to plus 0.5, then it says 19.1 plus 19.1, like around 38.2% of the data will be covered from minus 0.5 to plus 0.5. Okay, now given the particular question in this case, it says that minus 1.12, where this minus 1.12 will come? Okay, minus 1.12 will come somewhere around here. Okay, minus 1.12, it comes somewhere around here. Okay, so it says that there are like around 9 plus 4 13, 13 plus 2, around 15% of the people, around 15% of the people are reaching their home from reaching their home from office, like around 20, by taking 26 minutes is around 15%. Because I've taken 26, for the 26 what I got is minus 1.12. I try to put the value of minus 1.12 here. Minus 1.12 will come somewhere around here. Okay, when I say minus 1.12, it is 9.2 plus 4.4 plus 1.7. So just around 15% or people are reaching their home from office, okay, with the frequency of less than 36 minutes, less than or equal to 36 minutes. This is what the conclusion I can give. I came to this conclusion not directly by plotting the values, by converting the values to Z standard normal form or Z form. We call it as standard normal form. How to convert to standard normal form? We have a formula. Z is equal to x minus mu divided by standard deviation, where mu is the mean, x is the actual value, standard deviation you know how to calculate. Correct? Will you agree? Similarly, I calculate for 33. For 33, if I calculate the Z value, which is minus 0.51, okay, minus 0.51 will come somewhere around here. So I can say nearly around 45% people are reaching their home by 33 minutes. Because when I put this minus 1.51, I mean minus 0.51, it comes somewhere here, minus 0.51. So I can say nearly around 50% of the people are reaching their home with like around 33 minutes. This is what the conclusion I can give. Like this, lot of conclusions can be given for the normal data if it is converted to standard normal form. This is what is all about descriptive statistics. Okay, taken the data, we can give a lot of assumptions like this. Like for example, I can say average age the people die in India, okay, with respect to heart attack. Okay, then what happens, like how many people are going to heart, like how many people are dying, you know, for heart attack in India, so that I can put a normal distribution curve. Then I can say like around 60% of the people who are dying from heart attack in India are from the age group of 70 to 80. Okay, if these are the case, so these kind of conclusions I can give, and I can prepare a report, so that for my next analytics or for my next machine learning model or for the organization, it will be helpful for them. Just briefly, I can't say any assumptions. To do that, I'm converting to Z normal form. The formula to convert to Z normal form is x minus mu by standard deviation. Is that fine for everyone in here? Any concerns? Any concern for anyone? Are you people able to follow? Kavita, are you able to follow?
Yes, Vinay, I just have one question. Like initially data is given, how do you decide if it is you're going to go for a descriptive?
No, actually for every data we need to go for descriptive statistics, then only we must go for inferential statistics. Okay, the process of data science, the process of data analysis is take the data, understand this step, very important. Take the data, okay, understand how many variables, how many rows are there, how many columns are there, how many categorical value are there, how many continuous value are there. Then try to visualize the data, then try to answer the questions on your own by taking the data, okay, and try to fill the missing values. After filling the missing value, do something called as visualization, which is univariate analysis, bivariate analysis. Okay, after doing the visualization, then come for descriptive statistics. After descriptive statistics, you must go for inferential statistics. This has to be taken care for all the data. Okay, it is not a case like whether to do descriptive or not. For every data we need to do this. Okay, so for every given, but again it depends on the organization. Where for example, for in an organization, like assume an hospital, at the hospital the people are paying the bill, Okay, people are paying the bill, like there's a diagnosis center. A diagnosis center, the people are paying the bill. The people will say, no, let's not take that, the amount what they paid is not our concern. We are concerned about the value of the blood sugar level, the value of CBPH level, or the value of the BMI. We are worried about it. We are worried about the cholesterol. So let's eliminate the amount column what they are paid. Mean to say that it comes with an organization that takes the domain experience, where they say us, though this not a column, this column is not required, so don't do any statistics for that column. Okay, if they say that no, this column is important, we need to understand a lot about this data, then you start doing descriptive and inferential for that column. Is it making sense?
Okay.
Okay, great. Fine. Any other questions? No. Okay. Anyone, please take a time and try to analyze if you have any questions. Okay, fine. I assume that you people, understood till normal distribution and binomial distribution. I also told you binomial distribution. Can anyone take a responsibility and answer me the question like what is the formula for the binomial distribution? You want me to point out the names? I can do that. You can do on your own. Vimal, can you please answer?
NCR p power r and into 1 minus p power n minus r.
Oh, correct. NCR p to the power of r 1 minus p over to the power of n minus r. Correct. Good. Very good. So we got to the formula, like we got to know. I mean, I'll just revise the binomial distribution. Okay, I'll just show you. Just a moment. Okay. Stuck. Okay. So just a moment, I'll come back to okay. I have already shared a material for you people regarding Python distribution curve. If you have seen your classroom, okay, I think you people already know about it. Okay. Anyone didn't receive? Please check the classroom. Okay, I want people to check for the classroom. I've already distributed the code. Okay. Okay, so if you get the mean and the standard deviation of sample, then you can build a Gaussian distribution. People get confused with what is normal distribution, what is Gaussian distribution. Please don't worry. The perfect normal distribution is called as a Gaussian distribution. That's it. Okay, a Gaussian distribution will be having 0, delta. Mean to say the mean value will be at the center and the standard deviation value will be at the center. This is called as Gaussian distribution. Okay, so people speak in terms of Gaussian distribution, people speak in terms of normal distribution. So don't worry about normal or Gaussian distribution. So this was just the data, this was just a code what I forwarded with respect to normal distribution, which we already discussed. You can revisit the video, or else you can see the notes, which is already there in the notes. Okay.
Vinay, good morning. Was a question here. Like standard distribution, normal distribution with a Gaussian distribution. So basically, when we convert it, it will become a Gaussian distribution.
Oh, correct. But it's not a perfect normal, so it's not a perfect normal. It's not a perfect normal distribution. For example, if the more number of data is left skewed, then I can't say it is a perfect normal distribution, right?
We bring it to Gaussian distribution. We need to
once when we convert to when we take to standard normal form, then it is a Gaussian distribution. Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So once when we convert to standard normal form, we say it is a Gaussian distribution.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay. So we call it a 68, 95, 99 rule. Okay, this we call it 65, 98, 95 rule, which means to say that 34% of the people, okay, that means 34% to 34%, which is like around 68.2% between minus 1 SD2 plus 1 SD. Minus 2 SD2 plus 2 SD will cover 95%. Minus 3 SD2 plus 3 SD will cover 99% of the data. This is what we understood. Correct, right? Everyone, are you with me? Okay, so symmetric distribution, skewness and kurtosis. Okay, symmetric distribution, skewness and kurtosis. So what is this? So what is symmetric distribution? What is skewness and what is kurtosis? Okay. See, usually what happens, we understood that given the particular normal distribution, how to understand whether the data is having an outlier. How to understand the data is having an outlier? I can understand data is having outlier. Seeing we have two options: either to go with the interquartile range, or else either to go with the z value. Agree? Either we can take the interquartile range or we can take the z value. So if I can ask how to take the z value, can anyone just recap that? How to take the z value in outliers with respect to z value? When I say the data is having an outlier, when the data is having an outlier, how can you say that the data is having an outlier using the z value? What's the terminology?
In the standard normal form, if it is more than 3 standard deviations.
Very good. Good, Shankar. So Shankar says that, like, you know, if the in the standard normal form, if the data is greater than -3 standard deviations and +3 standard deviation, then we call it as an outlier. Correct, right? Yes. So when if I want to filter the outliers, then I can remove all the data which is like less than -3 st and greater than +3 st. Okay, they make sense. Now comes the next question, like how to do with respect to interquartile range. Manju, how to do with respect to interquartile range?
Q1 minus 1.5 greater
Good.
than, yeah,
Yeah.
that is
So the
for
value
lower.
which is less than Q1 minus 1.5 IQR and the value which is greater than Q3 plus 1.5 IQR, we call it as outliers. Agree? Yes, it is very important. Okay, given any value which the value is less than Q1 minus 1.5 AQR, Q3 plus 1.5 AQR, this we call it as outliers. Then we must understand how to find out the outlier, how to find out the interquartile range. How to find out the interquartile range? Anyone?
By using box plot.
Q3 minus Q1.
Q3 minus Q1, the formula. Q3 minus Q1. So to find out the interquartile range, we use Q3 minus Q1. This is what we understood. So we remove the outliers. So after removing the outliers, our data is perfectly normal, so that we can start answering the next question. Is what we say is all about the descriptive statistics. Next comes something called as kurtosis. See, people
Vinay, one question. We had around 100 data points. Adralli, let's say from that data points, when we do the first evaluation, we have 5 outliers. Madhya Mardaga, then again from that sample, we get another outliers, maybe another set of outliers.
After converting to standard normal form, did you try?
Okay, first
we need to convert to standard normal form, then you must try to remove the outliers. Okay, try to convert after convert the data to this the same question. I think Arun or someone had asked me, Arun or Pradeep, I don't know, Pradeep or Arun had asked me this question. Say, like, you know, if once I did the outliers, okay, once I remove the outliers, but after when I plot again I'm getting an outliers. Correct, Alva? If that is the case, like first you must convert to the standard normal form, convert to Z normal form, then try to remove the outliers, then it will give you the normal, now which values has to be removed. So any value which is like minus greater than minus less than minus is done. So that time we don't get the possibility of outliers again. Before converting to standard number form, outlier remove try madade, you will get that problem. Okay, so you must remove an outlier. Like first you must convert to Z normal form, then you must try to remove an outliers so that you don't actually face a problem. Did you get it? Vasu? Okay, I think this will be disconnected. Fine, that's okay. Okay, so then we have something like kurtosis. A kurtosis value, okay, my kurtosis is used to check for the outliers. The kurtosis value must be nearly equal to
disconnect
3. Yeah, it's okay.
Hello?
You got it?
So first data standard distribution ಮಾಡಿ ಆಮೇಲೆ outliers identify.
Yes.
Okay.
So excess kurtosis.
That's the only one step or multiple types?
No. It will remove for the first step. What you do only for the one time. So whatever the outliers are done, it's done. Okay.
Okay.
You need to remove that. Okay. So kurtosis is a value like one of the way of usually how people will see with respect to outliers is like kurtosis value. The kurtosis value must be nearly equal to 3 to check whether there's an outlier or not. Okay. Let's not deeply go into how this kurtosis will actually work because we spent our time doing the Z value and the interquartile range. Okay, but remember, okay, people also see the outliers with respect to kurtosis. The kurtosis value must be equal to 3 to say that there is no outliers. The value of kurtosis is greater than 3, then we say that there is some disturbance in the data and there is an outliers. So you must take care that the value of kurtosis will be less than 3 always. Okay, this is one of the kurtosis. I mean, I'm telling you with respect to kurtosis. We saw with respect to z value and with respect to interquartile range. One more term is kurtosis. Kurtosis is also used to check the outliers. Okay, so now the one thing which is very clear for you people is any data can be brought to standard normal form by applying the formula of z, correct, z value. Okay, any data can be formed to standard normal form. The value for z is x minus mu divided by standard deviation. So this has to be very clear for you people. Okay, so given the data, I directly can't do any kind of analysis, statistical analysis or data analysis on the data directly, convert it to standard normal form, remove the outliers, then start giving the assumptions and the like outcomes of the data. Okay, so kernel, we have something like kernel density estimation. We can refer this. Okay, why I'm just putting all the slides is I want people to just take a note on this and try to Google about kernel density estimation. It's not a very big topic, but I want people to just understand what is this KDE. Mean to say the kernel density estimation. Okay, so now comes something called as sampling distribution and central limit theorem. See what happens is, given a particular data set to you, we usually come to the conclusion that sample data must be equal to the population data. Whatever the sample statistics will be equal to the population statistics. Okay, so given the data, what is population and what is sample? When I say like around there are 10,000 people which has been affected by the disease, then I start experimenting by taking only 1,000 people randomly. The 1,000 people what I take random is called as sample, that is called as random sample, and those 10,000 people are called as population. Okay, I can't actually conduct an experiment with those all 10,000 people. Rather than that, what I do is I take these 1,000 people in random selection and I start conducting an experiment, seeing their symptoms, and they come to the conclusion it holds good for 1,000 people, the same holds good for 10,000 people also. Okay, so this kind of assumption is very important. That is, so we have sample and the population. Okay, sample is a part of the population. Okay, we need to take the entire data set as a population, and what we take the part of the data from the population is called a sample data. This is what usually happens. See, when I want to conduct an experiment, okay, a new, like a new drug has been found. If a new drug has been found, then usually they conduct an experiment with respect to rat. Then they go to monkey. After that, they come to like human beings. Okay, when they come to human beings, actually they try conducting an experiment for like around 100 people. Then they try to see that, oh, this 100 people actually they got cured, and they see their outcomes of the experiment, and later they give a conclusion this 100 people holds good for the same. Then they say that it also holds good for 10,000 people also. Then we need to be confident. We need to be confidently statistically proved, yes, this holds good. Okay, this whatever the experiment I conducted for this 100 people holds good for 10,000 people also. So in experiment, in live, actually we need to give a statistical inference and the statistical proof telling it as this holds good. Okay, this is how we'll carry. Okay, now when I say there's a concept called as central limit theorem. Okay, what the central limit theorem will say is, okay, if you have the sample data, whatever the mean you calculated approaches the sample mean, what you have calculated approaches the population mean. The sample mean what you have calculated will approaches the population mean if you keep on adding more data to sample. For example, you conducted an experiment with 10,000 people, for 100 people whom you collected in random sample. When you took the mean of that random sample, okay, the mean you met that somewhere around 2.3, but the population mean is somewhere around 3.2. So how would this, okay, this sample data approaches the population data? Add more data to sample, so the sample mean approaches towards the population mean. This concept is called as central limit theorem. Okay, this is a fact what they prove. So any data can be to population data. Okay, if you take the random sample, that is, I take for example, I have like around 10,000 data with me, which is the population. I take 10 samples in terms of I take 100 as like around 10 different data sets, each of 100 samples. Now what I do is I'll take the sample mean of first data set, which is first 100. I take the sample mean of the second 100, sample mean of the third 100, sample mean of the fourth 100. Later what I do, I take an average. Then whatever the average you've taken from all the sample data set is nearly equal to the population data is what the central limit theorem will say. So central limit theorem has given a proof that if you conduct an experiment with respect to sample, it is sure that it approaches near to the population. So conduct an experiment with sample so that you can give a lot of assumptions with respect to population. It might be not 100%, of course it will not be 100%, but yes, you can reach the expectation is what the central limit theorem will say. Okay, this will be helpful for us to conduct an experiment, because we can't take all 10,000 infected people and start conducting an experiment, because it is very cost effective in terms of it takes a lot of time and a lot of cost to do that. Rather than that, what you do is you take the 10,000 people from that and conduct an experiment, then come to conclusion for 10,000 people also. But people will be having a doubt telling it as, how can we so sure that 1,000 what you conducted will be same for 10,000 people? Central limit theorem will say that. Central limit theorem will say, okay, if you are approaching the sample data, it will be nearly equal to the population data. This is what it has been proved with respect to central limit theorem. Is it clear for everyone?
Hey Vinay, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So how many sample data should I be taking? Like, say you told 10 sample data. So how do I know that I should be taking only 10 sample data, or 5 sample data? How do I know like it's near to the population data?
Okay, so like the question here comes with, like, given data with respect to 10,000 data, then how much we are so sure that we need to take only 1,000 samples? Okay, usually in industry we follow terminology saying that we take 1/10 of the data. Okay, we take 1/10 of the data. That means to say that when I have 10,000 data with me, then I can take 1,000 data for the sample. Okay, but it is not always a strict rule that we need to take 1,000 sample itself. Okay, it always depends on the industry. Okay, like, if an industry says that, okay, you can go ahead with like more than 3,000, 4,000 people and we are ready to conduct an experiment for 3,000 people also, then we don't mind doing for the same. Okay, but we see with a cost effective way, and also that we usually matter of time complexity and also with respect to cost. Okay, conducting an experiment with respect to 3,000 people will be fine for the organization, then we don't mind conducting for 3,000 people also. Okay, but usually speaking, if you take 1/10 of the data, then we can come to conclusion along with the population data also.
So there is no actual measure of taking 1/10 or something.
No,
so
there is no actually a perfect rule telling it as this much of data has to be taken for the sample and the population. For example, when I say, okay, I want to conclude, I'll make a thing very clear. For example, when I take, in terms of corona, okay, what happens is we have a population of Bangalore. I don't know like how many number of people have already been affected with respect to corona. Okay, actually I don't know the population, right? I don't know the population. I just have a sample with me. Okay, yes. I have a sample. I don't know the actual population. I need to give a conclusion. This whatever the data I have with me, that is my sample. Then I'm conducting an experiment with that sample, and I'm coming to conclusion for the population also.
Okay.
If you don't know what is the population, then you need to take the data whatever you have. Then I'm considering as a sample. What data you have with me is considered as sample. But if in case you already know the population, then usually we take 1/10 of the data. Is it okay? Fine. Good question. Wait, anyone else? Okay, fine. So making sense?
Yep.
Okay. So this is what about the normal distribution. Okay, we have something called as Chebyshev inequality. Okay, we call it as Chebyshev inequality. If data is a Gaussian distribution data, and if we know the value of mu and standard deviation, then it's very much fine that we'll follow 68%, 95%, 95, 99% rule. But what if we don't know the distribution curve and we know only mu and the standard deviation? This is a very important topic actually. Mean to say that, okay, we know the data is binomial distributed, then we'll apply the binomial distribution formula. We know the data is normal distributed, then we come to normal distribution case. If the data is not binomial and not normal, it is something which is exponential or some other curve, what we don't know. Then is there any solution to apply for that? Then we have something called as Chebyshev inequality. Okay, this particular formula will come to the conclusion telling it as, okay, given the particular data set to you, then you can come to the assumptions by using this particular formula called Chebyshev inequality formula. Okay, what the formula actually says is probability of mu minus k into sigma, okay, and probability of mu plus k into sigma greater than 1 minus 1 by k by square. What exactly it is? Okay, it's the formula. I'll try with one example. Given a salary as a mean as 8,000 and the standard deviation as 2,000, I need to give a lot of conclusions in this particular data, and the data is not normal or binomial and not able to understand the distribution of the data. Then what to do? What to do is you can say something like this. So you concluded you took the mean of the data, which was 8,000, and the standard deviation was actually 2,000. Then conclude B, the probability of mu minus 2 USD Probability of mu plus 2sd is greater than or equal to 1 minus 1 by k square. Mean to say that, okay, mu is 8000, standard deviation is 2000, 8000 minus 4000 less than 8000 plus 4000, which is equal to 1 minus 1 by 4, that is greater than 0.75. Mean to say that 75% of the people is actually having the salary greater than 8000 is what the conclusion I can give with the data. Okay, salary as mean of 8000. I don't know the distribution curve. If I knew the distribution curve, then I can go with this 99%, 68%, and 95% rule. Okay, I don't know whether it's a normal distributed, then how to give the conclusions? The formula, this formula can help you to do so. Okay, the formula looks like this. Okay, mu minus k into sigma, mu plus k into sigma greater than 1 minus 1 by k square. So the probability of people having the salary, okay, greater than or equal to 8000 will be around 75%. This is what the formula says. This can be applied for the cases when you are not so sure the data is normal distributed data. Okay, this holds good. This holds good for the data which is not normal distributed and you're not so sure about the distribution curve. Okay, Akansh, any concerns?
Not for me.
Okay.
What is K here?
Vinay, but
Yeah. Good. I got 2 questions. Okay.
Vinay, how do we know? Because anyway, we plot the data points, right? So we know how it is, and then we try to convert to Gaussian distribution. But looking at this example, it seems like we are at the first attempt itself. If we are not trying to convert or doing something, let's say if it is exponential or something, as you said. But what is the what kind of
that's what I told
applications,
you. You're
for
not
example?
so sure with the normal distributed data. Okay, we don't know it's a normal distributed data. It might be exponential data. Okay, or it might be some log norm form. There's something like a log norm form. We got something like box cost transform. We have different type of other distribution curves. Okay, I can't really make into conclusions by just seeing the data because it's a normal data or not. I'm not so sure about the data. At that case, if you want to make some conclusion, then this is a way of doing it. Was it dedicated?
Not 100%. Okay.
Okay. No, I need to understand.
Maybe with one example we can see, because we are trying to convert all the data, all the samples into normal distribution, right? So why we are applying at the first step? Even after normal distribution, we are not able to get any inference, then we should apply, or?
Yeah, if you are not sure whether it's a normal distributed or it's a box cost transform or long normal distribution, okay, but you want to really understand about the data, then you can go with Chebyshev formula. That's it.
Okay, this is like the last step.
Yeah, finally, like if you're really not able to understand, then you can go with Chebyshev formula.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, shall we go for the next one? Great.
What is the K value here?
The K value here is when I say mu minus 2sd, you can see here the formula mu minus 2 into sigma. That K is equal to 2, mean to say that 2 standard deviation. The K value is 2 into SD. It rises between the 2 standard deviation minus 2sd to plus 2sd. Mean to say that it is like around 95% of the time. The whatever the K value you take here will be coming here. Mean to say that when I say 2 into SD, okay, 2 into SD mean to say that it is between the mu minus 2sd, mu plus 2sd. What is the probability the data between mu minus 2sd and mu plus 2sd is what it says. Okay, so the data is between mu minus 2sd to mu plus 2sd is 75% is the answer. The K here what I have taken is 2. If you can see here the formula mu minus K into sigma. K is 2. If you put is like 1, then what happens? It says 68%. It lies between mu minus 1sd to mu plus 1sd. If you take K as 2, it will be mu minus 2sd, mu plus 2sd. If you take K as 3, it is mu minus 3sd, mu plus 3sd. Mu minus 3sd, mu plus 3sd covers 99%. Mu minus 2sd, mu plus 2sd covers 95%. Mu minus sd, mu plus sd will cover 68%. So when I take K as 2, then I must understand 95% range what you are saying here. So I can say the salary which will be around 95% of the range. 75% are between the range of 90%. Mean to say that mu minus 2sd to mu plus 2sd is what it says. 75% of the people are lying between mu minus 2sd to mu plus 2sd is what the conclusion. So the K value what you put here is the same as what you put here. It is 1 minus 1 by K square. It is 1 minus 1 by 2 square. It is nothing but 1 minus 1 by 4. Is it clear? So it depends on the k. If you are looking for the 95% range, then you need to put the k value as 2. Putting for the 99% range, then you must put the k value as 3. Putting for 68% range, then you must put the k value as 1. As simple as that. Okay, it's at the end. As I told you, if really not able to understand the normal distribution or not, then you can go for this. But usually we can say we usually depend on the normal distribution curves only for the data. Okay. So we have something like discrete and continuous uniform distribution. If we have discrete uniform distribution, then we can go for binomial distribution. We have continuous uniform distribution, then we can go for normal distribution. This we have discussed a lot on this. Okay, and I just really, I have to do with hypothesis testing today, so I just don't spend time with respect to Bernoulli and binomial. We did it in the last class. Okay, I want people to see the PPTs. Okay, as I told you, we have something like box cost transform. Okay, and we have something like log normal transform. Okay, depending upon the question, if data is like if data is not exactly a normal distribution, then we have box cost transform also. Then you have log normal form, but we can't really go to the depth to understand why that log normal form, like why we have box cost form, because it would be like out of our agenda of learning. So let's not worry about so much of statistics, but understand if data is not up to the normal distribution, directly go to Chebyshev distribution and try to get the solution. As simple as that. Okay. So now we have something known as covariance. Okay, covariance is nothing but variance. Like you must understand. Okay, we have two type of covariance: positive covariance, negative covariance. Okay, to understand that we have something called as Pearson correlation coefficient. Okay, by getting the value of Pearson correlation coefficient, we need to understand how is the relationship between the two variables. For example, when I say salary with respect to age, is salary and age are correlated or not? Is it like really correlated? Is there any covariance between that? Okay, you need to not confuse with correlation and covariance. Okay, given the particular data, we need to understand, is there any relationship between the salary and the age? To come to that conclusion, we can use something like Pearson correlation coefficient. We can say that Pearson correlation value between -1 to +1. Okay, the value between -1 to +1. If the Pearson correlation coefficient value is 0, then I can say that there is no relationship between these two variables at all. Okay, for example, you are trying to analyze, you are trying to make a predictive model to predict salary of a person. Okay, to predict the salary of a person, assume. Then what I do is I have age, I have height, I have weight, I have number of years of experience, number of hours he work for a week. In that, when I start putting the Pearson correlation coefficient for the entire data, here what happens is the PCC value for the weight, the PCC value for the height will be nearly equal to 0.1 or 0. Mean to say that when you are trying to predict the salary, the dependent column is salary, the independent column is height, weight, age, and so and so. Okay, when I say height, weight, age, and the number of years of experience, actually what really matters for salary is age and the number of years of experience. Will that height and the weight is the concern? No way, because height and weight is nowhere related to the salary. Now what happens is when I try to put a PCC for this, that is Pearson correlation coefficient for all this independent data. What are independent data? All these four, which is height, weight, age, and the number of years of experience. Okay, if I put a PCC with respect to salary, then it says that this height and weight PCC is nearly equal to 0.01. Mean to say that is nowhere related. So I can eliminate those columns and I can take only the columns which is having all the features. We can say it as features. I can take the feature which is having the PCC value nearly equal to -1 or +1, because it may be positive correlated or it may be negative correlated, but it has to be correlated. This is what I expected. Okay, so we must take the PCC value which is nearly equal to -1 or +1. Okay, this can be done using the heat map also. What people did the heat map, we can do using heat map also. We can understand using scatter plot also. One of the terminology what we are seeing is PCC. Is there any doubts? Any doubts?
So what would be the independent values? Like you told -1 and +1. So can you relate something like what would be the independent values for the PCC value, like -1 to +1?
No, independent values in terms of like once when we have the data set with us, okay, we need to understand, we need to take the data set and decide for if I'm doing some predictive model, we need to understand the data, we need to do data analysis, right? If I'm doing the data analysis, I took an example with respect to salary. When I take the salary, I need to predict the salary of the person, or else let us take the person will be getting heart attack or not. If you want to understand whether the person is getting heart attack or not, then I will be having the features. What are the features I collected? The features are something like, BMI, cholesterol level, weight of the person, okay, then blood sugar level, all those values will be there. Then we have something like whether is there like what is that hereditary? Is that the people having hereditary symptoms of heart attack? Mean to say that we talk all these features. While building the predictive model, we need to really understand, okay, whether which features will actually strongly help me to make a prediction of whether the person will get heart attack or not. If I really want to make a very good model in that case, I must remove the features which is not really helping me to make a prediction on heart attack. For example,
so I got that. So basically we are identifying the independent variables. So
yes,
like, okay,
yes, correct. So we are trying to identify the independent features before building the predictive model so that the model will be strong. Okay,
awesome.
Fine. Any other concerns? Okay, making sense. Fine. So like after doing the Pearson correlation coefficient, we have something like Spearman rank correlation coefficient. Okay, what is Spearman rank coefficient is? Okay, see, this is all about the depth of statistics. Like if you really want to go to depth of statistics as a machine learning engineer, as an ML engineer, we are not so much concerned because everything is abstract in the industry. Everything abstract in terms of we are really not bothered of so much of statistics. But if you are a business analyst, or if you say you are as a data analyst, okay, then your concern has to be a lot on statistics. Okay, but I always say that a very good machine learning engineer has to be good in statistics, has to be a good data analyst. Okay, if you are good at data analysis, if you are good at statistics, then you can become a beautiful machine learning engineer. Okay, so we need to learn this concept. Okay, and you have something like Spearman rank correlation coefficient. Why Spearman rank correlation coefficient? If non-linear relationship, then what to do? Non-linear relationship in terms of, okay, for example, if I take age with respect to health benefit, as the age increases, health keeps on coming down. Okay, as the age with salary, as the age increases, salary will goes up. This is with respect to linear relationship. But there are cases where there are non-linear relationships. Okay, in that case, what to do is the relationship or not? Then we must go to Spearman's rank correlation coefficient. Okay, Spearman rank correlation coefficient mean to say that if you want to compare with respect to non-linear type of data, then how to give a conclusion whether it's dependent or not, the Spearman correlation coefficient will give you the solution. For example, I can say IQ of the student. Why can I say IQ of a student? Okay, IQ of the student is really matter with respect to his score. Okay, most number of students will be having an average IQ. It is not with respect to linear curve. As the IQ increases, the mark increases. No, I can't say that. This is with respect to the non-linear curve. If I want to understand whether really IQ is related to score mark, in this case, I must go for Spearman rank correlation coefficient rather than going to Pearson correlation coefficient. Is it okay? Like, are you people really muted? I can understand. Samruddha, are you there? Prashant, Samruddha, Shruti. Shruti, no comes in. So sure. Shankar? Akansh?
Yes, man, I'm clear.
Okay, great. Akshay? Okay, good man. People are really understanding. I'm so happy. I don't know. Really, actually, I'm planning to give a test for people on statistics. Okay, but within next week so that I'll understand whether how much people have really learned. We can use the help of Google also. No issues. Okay, for us, people are just putting a message in chat box. Okay, okay. Samruddha, how about you? For us is yes. Okay. Samruddha, what is okay? Okay, what is K? Fine, great. Okay, so let's go for the next topic. What's any concerns? Well, fine. Okay, fine, great. So we'll go for.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this is very important. Usually we say
just one question. Just one question. If you go back to previous slide where you plotted the data, this one. So this is the scatter plot or this is the correlation plot? What it is?
Yeah, it's a scatter plot.
This is the
it's just a scatter plot.
So for the Okay, okay. So for this example, it is not linear, so it is some
Yes.
kind of
Correct.
yeah. So in this case, even if yeah, so it's saying even if you plot a linear plot, then the efficiency is less. So in this example, we should go with something else, or what
Spearman,
exactly it
yeah,
means?
because in this case of graph, I clearly understood it's not a linear graph in terms of it's not a linear graph. So I'm very much sure how can I identify the relationship between the two variables. If it was a linear graph, then I can go to Pearson correlation coefficient. It's not a linear graph, it is something like this, then you must go to Spearman's correlation to understand.
Okay, so yeah, once we understood, for example, okay, so we know that we cannot go with some, let's example, this is a continuous variable, then we cannot go with regression. So in such a case, how we should build this model then?
No, regression in terms of, see, there are cases where you people really have to consider the data. When I go with respect to IQ, you really need to consider the IQ value. Okay, but the regression problem says that you need to consider the IQ value, provided IQ is, I need to check whether the IQ is related to marks or not. In that case, what happens is, if the Spearman rank correlation coefficient also says that there is no relation at all, then it does not make any sense to consider the data for the regression model.
Okay, so here we are talking about feature selection,
Yes.
not for
feature selection
the
in
final
terms of,
model.
and yeah, like let's not go to PCA, like we are not going to dimensionality reduction. My concern is not to do dimension reduction. It is a data analytics perspective.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is very important. We have something like correlation versus causation. Okay, what we say is, see, this is what I understood. Like when we really talk with the data, I want you to say like age and health are highly correlated. This is a right statement, but I can't say as a cause. Health is causing people to become old or either. Can I say like this? No, does not make sense. Mean to say that we need to be very careful with the correlation and the causation. Cause is different, correlation is different. I can't say, okay, when I take with respect to age and the salary, people more, because I have seen the process in industry. Okay, I understand this. When I say age with respect to salary, age, when people say that, okay, when the salary is increasing just because of the age. Is that the cause? No. So cause is not, I can't give a statement telling us cause is the same as correlation. This is very much important to understand. Okay, there is correlation does not mean to say that is the cause. When the salary is increasing with respect to age, it does not mean to say that age is a major concern to salary. Age causes salary to increase. No, correlation is different, causation is different. We need to understand this properly. If you want to really go to depth of it, you people can try. We have something called as causal models. Okay, we have something like causal models. Okay, the high level statistician actually are working on these causal models, which we say there's a lot of understanding on the causal models. We can see people are working just in the causal models. They say what is the cause? How, because people are doing PhD are really concerned of working on these causal models. If you can just take down and try in Google what are different causal models. Okay, but as of now you must be clear that cause is different and correlation is different. Okay, great. Okay, now I mean we have discussed a lot of applications of correlation. That's not a concern of it. Now I come to the part called as confidence interval. Okay, now we are in a step of inferential statistics. Okay, assume we need to find the average height of employees in your organization having 10,000 employees. Okay, assume we need to find the average height of employees in your organization having 10,000 employees. Now I say it is very difficult to collect the data of all 10,000. Is it correct, right? So usually when I say I need to collect the data of height of the employees, like I have like around 10,000 employees. When if you ask me a question, Vinay, why are we concerned about the height of the employee? Assume that a company is giving the shoes to you. Okay, like a shoe, something like as an offer. Okay, Nike people are sponsoring for your company or giving a shoes. Then you need to give a record as how many shoes is required. I really can't give an exact measurement. This many people are of 7 size, this many people of 8 size. Okay, so if I ask the height also, many people will neglect why these people are simply doing some nonsense thing and they don't give a response to you. So what you do is randomly I can just take the 1,000 people. Okay, out of 10,000 people, I've taken 1,000 people's shoe size. Then I need to give a conclusion that 1,000 people have this many distribution of data. I assume the same is happening with respect to 10,000 people also. This part comes to inferential statistics. Okay, we make I want to see the last point. We make a conclusion that sample mean is equal to population mean by computing for 1,000 employee. This is called as point estimate. This is called as point estimate. You can't give the actual value, actual data for all 10,000 employees. If all 10,000 employees is not possible, then what you do is You take 1,000 employees at random, conduct an experiment, and say that it holds good for 1,000. It also holds good for this 10,000 people also. Okay, this is what inference what you are giving. This is inference what this is a part of your inferential statistics. This analysis is called as point estimate analysis. This is point estimate. How can we do that? Okay, we call it as confidence interval. Confidence interval. How I can say, like, most of the people in our organization is having the size of height of 150 to 175 centimeter with 95% confidence. The HR will say,
hello Vinay, in the previous slide, if you go back to previous slide, so point estimate is nothing but something like sample derivation, or what exactly?
No,
so
point
if you
estimate.
are
So point estimate will say that, okay, most of the people in my organization is having a height of 175 centimeter. Simple. Okay, I conduct an experiment with respect to 10,000 people. Okay, and the 1,000 people, in the 1,000 people, what I conduct an experiment, I got to know on average everyone is having a height of 160 centimeters or 150 centimeter. This is what is point estimate. Simple. A simple point estimate. Okay, I take an average. I conduct an experiment with 1,000 people. Come to the conclusion with the 1,000 people. Say this is the point. That's it.
Okay.
This is respect to the point estimate. But this point estimate is not helping us in the organization, because I must say the height is between 160 to 175. That would make much more sense, right? Okay, height is between 160 to 175, and I'm sure that most of the people are between 160 to 175 with 95% confidence. That confidence is important. When an HR says, HR randomly says, I think so, there is around 170 centimeter, I'm not so sure. Then the marketing people or the people who are into purchase will ask them, how come you can say, like, how can you say like that? Telling like, not so sure. How come not so sure? You have to be confident, right? Now I'm asking question, how much confidence you are that the people are 175 centimeters? Okay, then I say confidence interval is required. If the HR says, I am 95% confidence that most of the people in my organization are between 165 centimeter to 175 centimeter. Okay, if the conclusion is something like this, that would make much more clear for rest analysis. Okay, this one it is mean to say that confidence interval says 150 to 175 centimeter is the height of 95% of the people in my organization. This was very much clear than compared to previous point estimate. Agree? So now comes the question, how to find out this confidence interval? Okay, just for the recap, people understood something with respect to mu minus 1 SD, mu plus 2 SD, mu minus 3 SD, all these things. Okay, this is respect to normal distribution curve. Okay, now we have something like computing confidence interval. Computing confidence interval given population standard deviation. Okay, given the population standard deviation, how do you calculate the confidence interval? This is the formula which says x bar minus z into s by square root of n, x bar plus z into s by square root of n. Take it as granted. Almost every interview will be having a question on statistics. If the question is on statistics, then there will be question for sure on confidence interval. Okay, they say that the confidence interval mean to say that how much you are confident on this range. Okay, the formula to give the range is x bar minus z into s by square root of n, then x bar plus z into s by square root of n. This is what the confidence interval which we can give. Okay, which we can give. If the person asks, I want 95% confidence, I need in a 95% confidence with the average height of a person. Okay, if someone asks, I need 95% confidence, then for 95% confidence you must use a z value as plus 1.96 and minus 1.96. If the person asks, I require with 90% confidence, then you have to use a z value as plus 1.65 minus 1.65. I am not telling theory, I am telling it practical. See if you can understand, when you go to this distribution curve, you can understand 95% confidence interval mean to say that what 95% means plus 1.6 minus 1.96. Okay, plus 1.96 minus 1.96 is come somewhere here. Okay, between minus 2 SD to plus 2 SD, plus 1.96 minus 1.96. This range covers your 95% of your data from here to here. So if you really want to understand, then what are the different values? Assume you are given only for 3 values. Given for 90%, 95%, 99%. I want 85% confidence. Then what to do? Okay, if you have seen in your school notebooks, they would have given something called logarithmic books. They have log books. If you open the Google and you can see Z table, just Google and see for the Z table. The Z table will be having what is the percent for what percentage was the Z value. Okay, if you want 92.2%, for that also you can get the Z value. If you use 95%, for that also you'll be getting a Z value. Okay, you can just open Google. Okay, so that next time, I mean in the next session, actually I'll try to tell how to see the Z values. But if you open the Google, for all different percentages, like for all confidence interval, the Z values is already being calculated and defined. Okay, you can just use the Z value and you can put plots. As of now, given the question, given the mean, and given the standard deviation, if you need to calculate the confidence interval, what is the formula? The formula is x bar plus z into s by square root of n, then x bar minus z into s by square root of n. This is what the confidence interval range. For example, the same thing what I told with respect to an HR. HR says that average height of a person is like around 160 to 175 centimeter. Then she must give a confidence interval telling it that I'm 95% confidence. Okay, if you say you're 95% confidence, then how is it so? You need to apply the formula like this: x bar minus z into s by square root of n, x bar plus z into s by square root of n. Then what is that z? Z is here 1.65. If you're using 90%, it is plus 1.96. If you're using 95%, using 99%, it is 2.58. Then what is the x bar? X bar is what? X bar is your mean. Then what is S? S is your sample standard deviation. Is that clear? Okay, we'll try.
And Z is what standardized normal distribution value, right? That
yes.
at that confidence percentage,
yes,
confidence
correct.
level.
Correct.
Okay.